So even from here, we can start to do some handling type things where we touch them and give a treat. And sometimes I'll give treats while I'm touching. I think that can be beneficial to teach them that it's okay to be touched while you're eating. But we can also do things where we do some touching, we look in the ear, yes, we mark and treat. And I'm just going to use a verbal marker right now, just because I'm so close to his head. We can do things like, can we look at those pretty teeth? So see how his ears went back a little bit? So we're going to stop there. But he can go ahead and get a treat. He's like, that's too much new stuff on a new platform. Okay, you get down. So what we have been working on, oh, that was a nice big stretch. What we've been working on is how to do nail trims with Ozzy. He isn't really problematic with them. Like, he's not running away. He's not overly frightened, but I want him to be able to like kind of volunteer in doing it. And so every dog that I have owned or worked with, it's always been a little bit different. So finding what works for them is really important. So what we're working on with Ozzy right now is, and this is a little awkward, I have to kind of sit funny. Ozzy likes to kind of roll into your legs when you're sitting on the ground. So let's see if he'll do that for me. He's just going to sit in front of me this time, which is fine. I'm going to go ahead and hold off on the treats for a second and see. Yeah. What do you think? Good boy. Yes. We'll reword that. What oftentimes I'll get is he'll kind of do a C shape and lay in front of me, which gives me really nice access to his toes without having to pick them up. Right. And so I think that ultimately that's going to be the behavior that we work on for his nail trims. But for right now, I've got a nice positioning in front of me that allows me to kind of do some touching and feeling. We'll look at those ears again. Yes, good boy. And mark and treat. I'm going to slide. I always start in neutral location and then I'll slide my hand down his foot. Yes, good boy. Super. So my marker is YES, and then the good boy is just part of his reinforcement. So some massaging, which he likes. Now, that was interesting. When I touched that foot, he actually pulled it back a little bit. So that was information that he was a little uncomfortable with that touch. So we'll just do some regular touching now. And let's see if he'll let me look at his teeth. They're sensitive. Well, let's take a peek. Yes, good boy. So I went step by step and let him just acclimate to the touch. We don't have to rush to get there. Mm-hmm.
Debbie, you mentioned that your husband has done most of the training with Ozzy. How often do you work with him? I mean, clearly he's in your family and you're around him a lot, but how often do you do training with him?
I work with him every morning on husbandry type care. So working on nail trims and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of been my role with him. Whereas my husband's been doing more of the social experiences, teaching him cues like check it out, sit down and stand, and recalls and working on healing and all that kind of stuff. So I have my little border terrier Chip that I've worked on those things with, which looks quite different than with Ozzy. But yeah, so usually every morning we do a little husbandry care session before he has breakfast.
And while we're talking, I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact, Juliana and I were talking before you came back about body language. And there's been a couple of really good instances where you've used body language just in the short time you've been on the air. Back when you were up on the platform or on the table, you mentioned that his ears went back and you immediately changed what you were doing so fast, in fact, that maybe some people didn't notice it. And same thing down here you saw when he moved his foot back. But tell us a little bit about what you're watching for and how you make the decision to adjust your plans based on what you see.
Yeah, so what I'm watching for, I want kind of this relaxed body language. You can see right now his ears are in what we call a neutral position for him, and his tail is relaxed. I don't know if you can see it on screen or not, but his whole body is relaxed. And when I have my hands on him, I can feel that too. So when I do things like I come up toward his head and his ears go back and I get a little lick lip, which might be the treats, but it also could be a little stress, or he freezes. So I can feel that tension under my hands. And that is where I will often pause. I will pause and wait and see, do they get better or they stay at that level of anxiousness? And if so, then I'm going to decrease what I'm doing.
Right.
So if they freeze and don't relax right away, within 2 to 3 seconds, I'm going to decrease what I'm doing.
Right.
And body language is so important with our social outings. It's so important to be able to know, is your dog having a good time? What does your dog look like when they're happy and relaxed?
Right.
And what do they look like when they get nervous or anxious? So for him, his ears will usually go back. His tail might go down, and often he'll stop taking treats if he's really nervous.